What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of League Unlocked. My name's Eric, flying solo today, and today we are jumping into the time machine and going back in time, believe it or not, and looking at the best moments, memories, and storylines from previous iterations of the Midseason Invitational. Why? Because we're one day away from the main group stage of 2018 MSI, so we gotta remember the greatest moments from previous tournaments, and we're starting off with the most recent event, 2017 MSI, which had some very memorable moments. It was the first, these big play-in tournament that we had that came in, and of course, one of the rivalries that was established in that play-in stage was TSM and the Gigabyte Marines, one of the most unlikely rivalries that you would have expected coming into this event. It became a bit of a meme, and with good reason, because it was a hilarious storyline. TSM, because of NA's poor performance at Worlds, they had the play-in stage to go through to even get to the main event, and TSM was on the border's edge of being eliminated from the competition thanks to the Marines. They had to go to a Game 5, and they were down a lot of gold in that Game 5 after, by the way, going 2-0. They had to reverse sweep to qualify for the main event. Bjergsen Syndra led the way there, but TSM fans, the TSM players, Reggie, I'm sure no one was thrilled after that best of 5 series because it shouldn't have gone to 5, but it ultimately did. TSM barely squeak it out. They're not excited about it. And how are they rewarded for that? Well, despite losing, the Marines eventually qualified by beating Supermassive 3-1 in the losers bracket, and then they played TSM on day 1 of the main group stage, and the boys from Vietnam got their revenge through some ultimate disrespect plays out of Hanser and the rest of TSM. The Marines got some vengeance on that first game and put a serious dent in TSM's hopes for getting out of the group. Into the knockout stage, and it proved to be one game here that if they had won, TSM would have in fact gotten out of groups, but because they dropped the first game to the Marines, they did not qualify for the group stage. And obviously, the Marines did perform better than we were expecting, and TSM got a bit of vengeance later on, winning the second matchup that they played when they were both 2-4. A must-win. TSM did win it, but the Marines did prove that they were actually a team that could take some games off people. They won 3 games in the event, but that rivalry was something I wasn't expecting. Most people were not expecting to form, and Levi, that was really his big coming out event where he just dominated in the jungle, and wasn't expecting it, but it was a fantastic game. A best of 7 they basically ended up playing that TSM did get the best of, but didn't result in them getting out of groups. But that rivalry, all in all, was fantastic. Yeah, TSM didn't get out of groups, but boy, were they ever close. And on that last day 5 of the group stage in MSI 2017, it was a real barn burner, a fiesta, if you will, between G2, TSM, and Flash Wolves for those final 2 spots heading into the knockout stage. And TSM, the first time they played G2, obviously they had this insane game where Trick almost backdoored, a couple hits away from winning, hitting the Nexus down. TSM does win. That was crazy. And all 3 of these teams, by the way, never had a winning record. And TSM started day 5. It all looked gravy. Bjergsen gets an Elder Steal. They knock off Flash Wolves. Both teams at 3-5. TSM moves to 4-5. They're looking good to get out of groups. They're 4-5. They need one more win, and they play G2, who's 3-6. You beat them, you knock them out, and you qualify yourselves for the knockout stage. But of course, that's never how these international events play out. It looked like it would. 7-1 start for TSM. Nice meme, 7-1. They had a huge lead, but they end up blowing the game. All these games, by the way, were taking 50-plus minutes. The Flash Wolves game, this G2 one, going north of the 50-minute mark. G2 keep their hopes alive, and TSM have to go to the tiebreaker against Flash Wolves. And you know they were tilted after blowing a lead in that G2 set because they got absolutely crushed by the Flash Wolves in this one. And spoilers, it wouldn't be the only time that Flash Wolves ends TSM's hopes and dreams. We're looking at you, 2017 Worlds, but Flash Wolves qualify for the knockout round. TSM gets eliminated, but that last day 5 was full of spicy matchups, and it played out how it had to play to have that tiebreaker and to have all 3 of those teams sitting at 4 and 6. But eventually it is G2. They survive and go all the way to the finals in that matchup against who else but SKT. Talking about SKT, they had some interesting storylines as well in 2017, but the most interesting one of the most interesting ones, was Xiye on that Lucian Mid. Now remember, this was before Lucian Mid was super meta and you were seeing it in every single solo queue game. It was rumored, it was played a bit at high ELO, and it was rumored that people were playing it at scrims, but Xiye's the first guy to bust it out at the MSI tournament, and he was an absolute animal on it. Yeah, he got some attention from Condi, but I mean, he got first blood on it and did not look back from there. Actually got a double kill against SKT and really did not look back from it there. He was super clean on this champion, his auto attack weavings, and who can forget the fade away culling solo kill on Faker. Just get that power spike to level 6, all in him, and bam! If that wasn't the only time he got a solo queue, he was clobbering Faker on the Orianna. The guy was playing out of his mind. He was 7-1, 8-1 at points, and this was when you had the insane reset ability on his, whatever he's called, Relentless Pursuit, I think is what it's called, but you remember the 40% CDR Lucian with that Black Cleaver Bork build. Xiye performed out of his mind on that champion to get a win against SKT, only one of their 2 losses in the group stage at 2017 MSI. That was a very memorable moment, and it really shaped the meta for months to come. Lucian Mid became a huge, heavily contested pick going forward in 2018. So because they lost, you're like, wow, SKT must have not done that well at the event, right? Well, of course, probably the most memorable moments from the group stage at 2017 MSI came from Peanut, because he was just absolutely clobbering people, specifically on that Lee Sin. He was playing, this guy was from another planet with how well he was playing. TSM was the first victim. He completely outclassed Svenskeren. And what people tend to forget is that they just assume Peanut was no good on SKT because of how they performed in 2017 summer and at Worlds. But he played out of his mind in spring, and SKT was a terrifying team. Huni and Peanut both were absolute animals at the midseason invitational, and the fact that this guy got Lee Sin 6 times at this event is a problem. He was 6-0 with an 11.8 KDA. A lot of that came from this game. Everyone remembers this matchup with the Marines. This guy's going in 1v3, 1v2. He's killing 3 guys by himself. This was the legendary game where he got 14 kills at 12 minutes on the Lee Sin. It was just absolutely ridiculous. One of the funnest matchups I can remember in recent memory, and just the history of international events. You got Quickshot saying he's playing whack-a-mole, which is exactly what he was doing. The Marines were basically inting in that play, but 14 kills at 12 minutes is absolutely insane. This was like a solo queue game when you used to be able to spectate high ELO solo queue. That's what this was. This whole event for Peanut was basically solo queue. He was just clobbering fools left, right, and center. And it wasn't just the group stage. He still did it in the grand finals against G2. He was popping off on that Lee Sin. And he was just, again, a dominant force the entire group stage. It's rare to see someone absolutely demolish the competition so hard on an international stage when these are the champions of all the other regions. Maybe we'll be seeing that again this year with the likes of, Peanut again, or maybe Khan, but they're definitely going to be clobbering some people as well. Also, honorable shout out, memorable storylines and moments to Perks, getting some solo kills on Faker and really just beating down Faker in some of those, basically the first game of that SKT G2 finals. And of course, Wolf's Zyra engage, which we highlighted in our top 5 plays in the history of MSI. But Peanut dumpstering people in the group stage was the highlight for me from 2017. Coming up after the break, we're going even further back in the time machine, back to 2016 in Shanghai for some of the best storylines from that MSI event. We're back on League Unlocked. My name's Eric, and we're jumping back in time, taking a look at the biggest storylines, moments, memories, just overall most enjoyable pieces of gameplay from previous MSI events. We're on to 2016 now. Obviously, this one ended in the SKT CLG final. NA had some redemption, but the start to this event on day one was something to behold. You had the CLG RNG matchup. Obviously, RNG were the hometown kids, the hometown favorites with the event in Shanghai. Everyone wanted RNG to win, and they opened up against CLG in a real barn burner. There were a whole lot of kills in this one. You got Huhi on his Aurelian Soul. Now remember, this is the RNG installment. Without Uzi, they had Whoosh at AD carry, and the most memorable play, or one of the most memorable, because there were multiple, was this fantastic team fight in an already team fight heavy game where it looks like RNG's winning and Xiye turns it around with some nasty Caitlyn play, ends up with a quadra kill, and then Looper comes in on the Poppy. Who can forget top lane Poppy? Fun times, fun times. But this play, everyone remembers this turnaround from Xiye, and if you look closely, I've seen this play 1,000 times, he cancels a whole lot of his auto attacks, and if he plays it a little bit cleaner, he probably gets the kill here and ends up with one of the best pentakills in competitive history, but because he stutters some of the autos, he goes down, ends with just a quadra kill. How disappointing, right? And then later on, you had Whoosh getting a quadra kill of his own, which ends up turning the fight around. Just such a bloody game and such explosive team fights. So many players dying in all these team fights. It was by no means at all a boring game. RNG get the win. They win game one of MSI 2016. Fans lose their minds. And Mata, very happy. This installment of RNG looking super solid. RNG fans were aplenty, but it didn't end there. The CLG RNG matchup. The first game was insane. Well, that means the second game was absolutely out of this world bonkers. RNG got off to their crazy start, as we all remember, and they were up about 16,000 gold. And then, of course, CLG Kobe is rewarded for being faithful. Starts with this turnaround fight in CLG's base to begin one of the biggest comebacks in the history of League of Legends. Maybe the best comeback ever. You have Xmithy with the Dragon Steel, 5th Dragon. He uses the Kindred ultimate to keep it alive. Then MLXG blows his smite on something that he can't kill. CLG wins this fight to get back into the game, and then you have this crazy fight where Xiye's popping off yet again on the Kalista. Xiye played out of his mind this entire tournament. He got the All-Pro AD Carry award for that group stage. Spoilers, it was 4 RNG members and Xiye. What you can't forget about this game is RNG was undefeated up to this point. They were 7-0. CLG was 4-3. They hand them their first loss of the group stage in an amazing come-from-behind win. They were still down almost 6,000 gold at the explosion of the Nexus. They won the game and they were still down 6K. Just an absolutely insane series between those two, and they ended up finishing 1st and 2nd in the group stage. Well-deserved for both of them. They both played amazingly in the group stage, and that was a memorable run from MSI 2016. Another memorable moment was the series between, yet again, RNG. They were the stars of this tournament for most of the event when they matched up against SKT. Mentioned they finished at the top of the group standings in the group stage, and what are they awarded with? Facing SKT in the semis, because they were sandbagging and finished 6-4. They ended up finishing 4th. That's one of the main reasons, probably the main reason why they've changed how the event works this year for 2018. The first place group team from the group stage can pick who they play coming out of the groups, and that is much needed. That would have been needed in 2016, but when RNG and SKT faced off in those semifinals, RNG got out to that great game one start. The hometown crowd in Shanghai absolutely losing their minds. Oh my God, we're gonna beat SKT. The arena was just absolutely electric, insane atmosphere. And what does SK do after that? They completely suck the souls. Every individual fan's souls were sucked out of their body after the coming games for SKT. Game 2, complete stomp, 16-3, sub 30 minutes. Game 3, a little bit closer, but it's still SKT demolishing them, and of course they show no emotion here. And then Game 4, sub 30 minutes, bang, still with no emotion. Perfect game for SKT, completely silencing the arena in Shanghai. It was the quietest you'd ever heard an arena that was that massive at an international event, because they were just completely awestruck and couldn't, flabbergasted, if you will, with how badly SKT destroyed RNG. Just picked them apart piece by piece. It was calculated, it was cold, it was like a laboratory of League of Legends that SKT demolished them, and it was very memorable, and you gotta just feel for RNG that they had to draw SKT in those semifinals. Obviously, the run CLG had was also very memorable. What was most memorable was the bad pick ban in the finals, and they got completely destroyed. They played the exact same matchup back-to-back, and SKT, believe it or not, clobbered them in both of them. SKT wins yet again. Coming up after the break, we're going even further back in time, back to 2015 in Tallahassee, Florida for MSI 2015, the inaugural event. We're back. It's League Unlock. I'm Eric, and we're recounting the greatest moments in the history of MSI because MSI 2018 gets underway tomorrow. The main group stage is finally here, but we're going to the way, way, way back machine, all the way back to 2015. Boy, how the world was different way back in 2015. Everything, it seemed much simpler a time back in 2015. And in 2015, Azir was not so meta, so not as picked. He was still a relatively new champion, and at MSI 2015, the likes of Faker and EasyHoon, combination of Uzi and EasyHoon, really demonstrated how to do the Shurima Shuffle, which wasn't even a thing before MSI 2015, but these guys were putting up insane mechanical displays, and everyone, Faker kind of was subbed out because people thought EasyHoon was the better Azir player. And, he really showcased in some of these games that he was fantastic. But believe you me, Faker was no slouch on the champion. And of course, we know how good he is on that champion to this day. But it was still fresh. It was still new. It was cool seeing all these soldiers dancing around. You didn't really know what the heck was actually going on when they're sliding all over the place. You don't really know what order their buttons were pressing. So it was pretty cool. It was kind of like, to a lesser degree, the insect kick. It was kind of debuting at this event. It was super cool to see these guys popping off on these champions. Now you see Azir and you're kind of like, oh, again, great. Another Azir pick in the game. That sounds really fun. But in 2015 MSI, it was very exciting seeing these guys absolutely clobber people. Also, one of the most interesting, one of the most compelling series at 2015 MSI was Fnatic and SKT. Not just their best of series in the semifinal, but also their group stage match. The first installment of MSI, it was a best of one round robin. And how did it go for Fnatic? Well, you had this Sejuani bug. Look at this. Fnatic had their they had a pretty sizable lead in this game. They end up losing a team fight here. And one of the main reasons is because Huni tries to help Reignover because he gets caught out. And why does he get caught out? Because of a bug in the game. He clearly queues over, but then he gets bounced back and eventually dies. And then it ends with the bang pentakill that we've all seen 100 times. But the referee said because Fnatic didn't ask for a pause after that bug happened, there's no replaying the game. There's no review to it. So Fnatic didn't ask for a pause. The game goes through. They end up losing. Who knows how that plays out if that team fight earlier on doesn't go the way of SKT. Maybe you never see this amazing highlight out of Bang, but they end up losing that group stage match. And then in the semifinals, the rivalry is renewed, and that's when you have Febiven popping off, 1v1ing Faker when Febiven was still a somewhat unknown commodity, kind of rookie in the LCS, bursting onto the scene. Well, he made a name for himself when you 1v1 a god and destroy him. Obviously, a Zed Azir is kind of favorable for Zed, but he was playing out of his mind for them there, and they take them to 5 games in that matchup. Fnatic didn't even do that well in the group stage, but to force SKT to 5 games. Remember, this is the SKT, the 2015 iteration that eventually would go on to crush at Worlds with Marin in that top lane. They evaporated everyone at that tournament. It ends up Fnatic surrendering in that game 5 after they gave a quadra kill to Bang on the Urgot. Boy, remember seeing Urgot in the competitive scene? Those were dark days, my friends. Very dark days indeed, but one of the best performances to date that the West has ever put up against SKT at an international event. Fnatic of 2015, that was before you even had Reckless as a starting AD carry. You still had Steelback. Who knows how things might have changed at that event if Fnatic just paused the game after that Sejuani bug. Who knows what would have happened? Also at 2015 MSI, of course, the ending to the event, the final game, Faker versus EDG. They go down 2-1, and Faker, 3 games of Easy Hoon. SKT falls down 2-1. Faker comes in for game 4 on the Kassadin, helps carry them to a victory, and in that 5th and decisive game, he gets his LeBlanc, who he was 16-0 on up to that point. But what do EDG do? Well, they're ready for it. They counter it. They have a full team comp designated to counter that. Maokai top, Morgana in that mid lane, and Sivir in the bottom lane. Just so many shields to counteract Faker's LeBlanc. He still did get going at points in the game, but Clear loves Evelynn, and again, these Maokai, Morgana, Sivir picks. It was just completely countered to Faker. He couldn't jump into a lot of these fights and get anything done. Again, you had the Urgot. You had Urgot, Nunu, Nard, Nautilus. Not much damage in this SKT comp outside of Faker. The legend of Faker was still growing at this point, so it seemed inevitable that when he came into this best of set that SKT were going to win the matchup, and then he gets his patented champion in the 5th and decisive game. You were like, come on, there's no way they're going to lose this. And at times he just overextended. When you got the Maokai point and click, pretty much any time he dashed in, he was just getting bopped and chain CC'd with that Maokai, along with the Morgana on pawn, and EDG go on to win their the first ever MSI tournament. And that was one of the most memorable to date. It's one of the most memorable best of 5s. It's pretty rare that you're going to see a non-Korean team upset a Korean team in a best of 5 series. You can probably count on one hand how many times that's happened. Season 2 Worlds, which really, things were still getting developed at that point. But it is a rare thing to see, which was just a fantastic ending to the first ever installment of MSI 2015. They've made a lot of changes to the event over the years, like they played 5 games in the group stage in 2015, which is just not enough. Now you're playing 10. You got that double round robin that teams are playing, which is definitely something you want to be seeing. You want more action for these international events. I know everyone wants more international events already, but come on, these guys' schedules are already insane in the competitive scene. So you can only fit so many tournaments. But this year's MSI 2018 event in Europe, in Berlin, we've already seen the play-in stage had some very interesting moments, some fantastic moments. The play-in knockout stages weren't quite as hype. Maybe people underestimated, myself included. We underestimated Flash Wolves and Evos Esports. I thought Supermassive would at least put up a fight. Maybe Gambit. They both got clobbered, slobber knockered, if you will, pretty convincingly. And now we've got the main group stage for MSI 2018, less than 24 hours away. Kicks off with RNG taking on Fnatic. You know it's going to be an electric game there. Uzi versus Reckless. I expect many memorable moments, plays, and storylines to play out at this year's midseason invitational. And I cannot wait for it to get started. But that's all the time for today on League Unlocked. My name's Eric. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you tomorrow.